Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 217, recorded at Big Dog Studio. Today's show is brought to you in part by the Herbal Nerd Society.
We want to thank the Herbal Nerd Society for their kind and generous support. Each month, Herbal Nerd Society members give us a small subscription fee, and in return, we give them 4 articles each that are written on an Herbal Nerd Society inspired topic, and we do a monthly newsletter. And then we try to send out gifts and create opportunities for connection and discussion with the Herbal Nerd Society, usually quarterly. Go over to thepracticalherbalist.com and click on the Herbal Nerd Society to learn more.
All right. Now here are your hosts, Candace Hunter and Patrick Hunter.
I'm Candace Hunter.
And I'm Patrick Hunter.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio. So how do you like Big Dog Studio?
It's a change for sure. We're in a different part of Eugene now, and we have big picture windows so we get to see all the traffic that's going by as we're recording.
And the butte. We can see the butte. Well, I can see the butte.
Yeah, you can see the butte. I can't see the butte.
I strategically positioned my spot at the kitchen table here to see the butte.
Yeah, I get to see a chain restaurant. Thanks. I appreciate that. But as many of you know, we've moved offices and locations. We've condensed all of our businesses into one hub, if you will. And this is actually our first show recorded at the new studio space.
Yes, names were thrown about. I liked calling it the West 11th.
And I thought that sounded like a bar, so I figured that wouldn't work.
So we talked about many other options, but honestly, it is a Big Dog Studio.
It is a Big Dog Studio. One of the things that's really cool is now that we have our own space that we're doing it, so we can set the rules, and one of the rules is that
Mudpaw comes along.
So the big black dog is here, visiting with us every day that we're here, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I think he likes it.
He does.
So, we had Sage Apabam last week.
That was really a terrific discussion. I always really enjoy talking to Seja. He is insightful.
I always mess him up with somebody else, and so when I'm listening to him, when he says, "Oh, we have Sage Pop," I'm like, "Oh, we have to record that show for him." Okay, like, all right, and I get into it, and I'm like, and then it's someone else. I'm like, "Oh, it's that guy."
You're so bad.
Well, you never know. I mean, he is. I just messed up some names, he's really. He embodies that practical part of the practical herbalist that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always loved about talking with him and learning from him is that he's got that sort of understanding of the esoteric, way out there intricacies of how the stars affect the plants and all of that. But he's actually really practical, and he always brings it right back down to, okay, so you've got a cough. Let's talk about that.
Right. So he can address any level of woo-woo that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I think, going back to that practical statement, is that one of the things, especially now as we're recording this, the coronavirus is starting to move through the U.S. pretty fast. And a lot of people are concerned about it. Of course, we have the unfathomable, unreasonable, no way to define it, run on toilet paper in the country, which no one's can figure this one out.
I do want to ask this question. Were people not using it before?
Right. And
soap too. Were people just not washing their hands before? It's a little scary to me.
That is the interesting part. And an article I just read, actually yesterday, talked about, they interviewed people at Costco in the morning, and they asked them, "Why are you buying all this toilet paper?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, because everybody else is."
Right.
So it's this herd mentality that's causing this run on paper products that doesn't need to be done. And the other thing too, the symptoms of the coronavirus are basically the symptoms of a heavy cold, heavy flu, and pneumonia.
Yeah.
That's what you need to be worried about, not whether or not you have 200 rolls of toilet paper sitting in your bathroom. Because it's not going to give you diarrhea.
It tends, as far as everything I've read about it is it tends to be much more affecting the respiratory tract. Yeah. So, you could use Kleenex to blow your nose if you need to instead of toilet paper.
Yes. I think maybe people are so worried that they may be quarantined.
I think that's what
But I think it has to move to such a different level right now than it is for the quarantine, for mass public quarantine to come about. And maybe, and I know that I was reading, another person sent me something today from I think it was the CDC, and said that the virus doesn't last in the sun. So maybe with more sun coming, maybe we'll
that'd be helpful.
have a less opportunity for spreading. But
for some of us, like those of us in the Pacific Northwest, the summer and the sun also usually brings drought, so that'll dry things up, which will make it harder, I expect, for the virus to survive. And then for folks who live in the damper areas, damper climates, the warmth will make it harder for the virus to survive. Yeah. It's my understanding. I could be wrong, but my understanding is that warm temperatures are harder for it to survive in than cold temperatures. So
right. But that in mind, going to visit your herbalist is part of this whole conversation of overall health and overall benefits.
Yeah. So I've got to say right here, if you believe you have coronavirus or you're fearful that you may have coronavirus, don't go see your herbalist first. That would be maybe a doctor's visit, because that's a trauma sort of thing. That's an emergency room potentially kind of thing. If you're feeling like you need to get help and you've got those kinds of the corona symptoms, the high fever and the respiratory distress, and you're starting to having problems breathing, that's when you need to really go to the emergency room.
Well, and that brings up that whole idea of what is trauma versus more acute long-term treatment. So a broken arm, herbalist or not?
I'm thinking if you can get to a doctor, you're much better off.
Right.
If you're in the middle of the woods and you happen to be with an herbalist and there are no doctors within shouting range, okay, yeah, you're probably going to ask the herbalist to help you out. But right. If you're living in a civilization anywhere and you can see a doctor because you broke your arm, you should.
Right. So that's that defining of that trauma, a very large cut or gash, or something where it's going to need to have sutures or stitches. Mm-hmm. The broken
heart attack. Go see a doctor.
But if you have issues of breathing, maybe, or I'm trying to think more of acute issues, Candace. More of a long-term kind of thing that would be affected well by herbs?
Well, herbs do well for like chronic conditions. So let's say you've got digestive problems, or you have chronic migraines, or you have pain that just is always, it's long term. It's not, I just bumped my knee and now I've got a bruise and it hurts. It's, my knee hurts every single day, or it hurts more when it's raining or whatever. Those kind of conditions are often really, the long-term chronic problems are often very well helped by herbs. Yeah,
like systemic inflammation that might cause that osteoarthritis thing. Like for me, my knee, I know that I take things that you've recommended, of course, and over long term that my knee pain has gone way down because of that, and my inflammation's gone down because of those things. So that's a long-term chronic condition that's really good for herbalism. I want to make sure that I was using acute wrong, misusing that word. I don't want, acute means big time. You got to
acute is like something really bad has happened, or you're in a sudden illness. Mm-hmm. Might be an acute thing. An ear infection would be considered an acute thing. Someone who gets ear infections all the time, though, that's kind of more of it crosses. In the moment when the infection's flaring up, it's acute. But if you're getting them every couple of weeks, then it's really a chronic issue. Right. And that's a point where you probably want to work with both the doctor and your herbalist. Your herbalist will help you address the chronic aspect of it and hopefully move it in the direction of not having flare-ups. But you may need the doctor for the flare-up moments, and that's okay. That's part of the power of herbalism, is that herbalists are trained, good herbalists are trained to work with other care providers. So they're trained for working with, being able to speak the language of doctors, being able to speak the language of the acupuncturists, being able to speak the language of the sports medicine physicians, and the word physical therapists. Mm-hmm. They need that's what a good herbalist is doing, is learning how to speak all those languages so that they can communicate clearly with and about whatever it is you need to have them communicate about. That when you come to them and say, oh, I've got these labs, I don't really know what they mean, a really well-trained herbalist will be able to sit down with you and start explaining. They may not know all the information. They may need to take time to do some further research, but they should understand the basics of what they're looking at.
So now that we've kind of defined really what you would need to see an herbalist for, if you're going to an herbalist, what would you want to bring along to if you will, to maximize your best outcome or your best treatment or your best ability to help the herbalist help you?
Well, when we were talking before we started recording and got the show going, you mentioned that it's really important to bring your story with you. Mm-hmm. And that's really one of the powerful aspects of going to see an herbalist that you don't often get with a physician is you've got time to tell your story.
Right.
And a lot of times the gold is in, or the diamonds are in the details of the story that you may not realize are connecting them or are connected with the cause or the primary root of the problem. And your doctor doesn't hear it because he or she just doesn't have time to sit with you for an entire hour while you tell your story. But your story is, includes your symptoms, it includes what you've tried and how much you've tried. I mean, if you have insomnia and you tried kava once after you had a lot of coffee, then yeah, kava didn't work that time, but you didn't give it a really strong go. There might be some different ideas your herbalist has for it, or maybe they suggest something completely different, But the doctor doesn't necessarily have the time to be able to sit with you for the full, long story and hear all the various details.
Yeah, it's down to the kind of the nuts and bolts thing with a physician.
Yeah,
typically because you just don't have.
And for
they don't have
acute
the time,
care,
so.
for acute care or serious traumas, that is what it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the place the doctors serve really, really well. Unfortunately, we've tried at least in our country, to make the doctoring, the system we have for medicine be one size fits all, and it really isn't. That's not an accurate way of looking at it. And we do have some types of doctors like naturopaths and osteopaths who open up more. They have a little bit more time. They can make more space for a little bit more of the story. So, they, along with herbalists, are good pieces of a team that, make sense to have.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, is that if you're going to see an herbalist and you're going to go through the time to tell your story and you're going to go through the time to listen to what they have to say and recommend certain things for you to do, sometimes it's not always going to be a tea or a tincture or whatever. It might be those things, but they also might say, no, I want you to develop a sleep routine, or I want you to develop this. And I think one of the things that, and I'm trying to remember the term, it eludes me at the moment, but basically patient buy-in, if you will. And I don't want to use the word patient, but
Yeah, you need to be invested in whatever it is that they suggest.
Right. Because you don't want to just take the tincture and then don't change anything else, and then 2-3 weeks later come back into the herbalist and say, nothing works. I knew herbs didn't work, and that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas you didn't really make the overall changes that the herbalist might have suggested based on your story. I mean, if you're a completely stressed out person, always stressed out, it doesn't matter if you see an herbalist or you see a physician. At the end of the day, they're really not going to be able to fix you because you're not willing to change. There's not a magic drug or an herb that can cure you in those types of situations. You have to have, it's a more of a, I don't like this word, but a holistic way of approaching your care and what else you can do. I mean, we have a teen who always wants to have the magic pill, and we've been telling him for years, there is no magic pill. A pill can help you with symptoms, it can help you with things, but if you're not willing to de-stress, go to bed on time, wake up at the same time, not start, drink energy drinks at 10 o'clock at night and not, expect that you're just going to fall asleep after that. If you're going to do those things continually, then yeah, you're going to continue to have those problems, those issues that you're having. So you're not going to get better.
Right.
So you have to really own your own
own your own power, own your power to make changes. And that goes for not just seeing herbalists, but seeing every type of healthcare provider, doctors included. Ultimately, at the end of the day, when your doctor says, oh, I want you to try this prescription or this therapy or whatever, you need to choose to try it or to not try it. And if you try it and it doesn't work well for you, it's not the doctor's fault. they're practicing, they're trying to figure it out too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't followed their advice, then you can't really blame them when their suggestion doesn't work. And that goes for herbalists as well. I mean, if the herbalist says take the tincture or the tea half an hour before bed, and then turn down the lights, turn off all your screens, make space for quieting down, get into your pajamas, prepare for bed, sit down, do your meditation for 2 minutes of breathing, and then lay down. And you don't, and instead you make the tea, but you are busy, trying to get some last couple of emails in and see the last 10 minutes of your show, and you sort of get yourself ready for bed in about 5 minutes instead of a half an hour like suggested, then the tea is not going to be able to help you as much because you haven't bought into the process of preparing for sleep. So what do you expect?
Yeah. And it is what do you expect. So you have to take, and we've said that here before on this podcast. Yeah. You have to take ownership of your healthcare because no one else will.
Yes.
And depending on
you're the one who's got to live in that body.
Right. And depending on a fleet of other people to do that for you, you're just going to be miserable for a very long time.
Yeah.
Until you're willing to take ownership.
So yeah, when you're going to see your herbalist, bring with you your story. Make sure that you know or you've jotted down the details of your symptoms. When do they occur? How did they occur? How does it feel? What makes it better? What makes it worse? That sort of thing. Anything that you've already tried or you're currently trying. It's really important when you see your herbalist to let them know that you are on these supplements or these prescriptions, or you were on them and you quit taking them a day ago, a week ago, a year ago, whatever it happens to be, if it's, within a year-ish, right. Or if it's in close proximity to when the problem started. You were on this prescription, then this problem started and you quit taking it, but the damage is done,
Exactly.
You just make sure that you have those pieces of your story there. And you should also bring with you honesty. It's much more helpful to your herbalist if you're honest with them. Say, yeah, I don't go to bed I want to get 8 hours of sleep every night, but in all honesty, it's more like 6 because I tend to stay up watching TV later than I want to. Your herbalist, if he or she is the proper herbalist for you, should not be judging. There's no judgment. Mm-hmm. It's not about judgment at all. The herbalists that I know, not a single one of them judges over what you did or didn't do or what I have or haven't done. What they're really doing is saying, let's look at all of the picture. Let's see the whole picture and try to figure out where we can move a piece a little bit here or a little bit there to bring you into better alignment with what you want to experience.
Right.
So they're not looking to judge at all. They're looking to understand the whole entire complexity of this pattern that you're dealing with. So if you're not honest with them, they're not seeing the real pattern. They're going to see a distortion. So they're going to suggest something based on what they believe is the real pattern, and it's actually distortion. And it could be that the little bits of information that you weren't really honest about is actually the really key pieces to helping them recognize this herb isn't the right one, that's the right one. And you're gonna be more satisfied and you're gonna have a better experience with the herbs if you're just honest.
Right.
And that's not always easy.
No, because we always feel like we'll be judged, and the herbalist isn't there to judge you; they're there to help you.
Right. And it's hard not to judge yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean we're usually our worst critics, and if you can calm that voice down, then you're even ahead of most people.
Right. Yeah. Not judging yourself is really challenging. You should expect that your herbalist will support you in whatever it is you're doing, however you're doing it, not judge you.
Right. And their job is not to do that. Their job is to help you.
Yeah.
And maybe even give you a insight into what's causing even that judgment on yourself, and hopefully you'll be able to fix that too.
Yeah.
So bring your story, bring your stuff, get ready to be treated, take ownership. All good hints, all good clues, all good things to do. So we have a question, don't we?
We do. We have an Herbal 101 question today.
And I don't have any cool theme music for our Herbal 101 question anymore.
Oh,
nice.
What happened to our
so
cool
now it's just
theme
time
music?
we had Herbal News music
Yeah.
But now we just don't. So we're going to just say it's time for Herbal 101 questions. So today's question comes from Veronica J. Her question is, hello, I'm in the process of preparing and macerating some herbal glycerites. I intend to agitate or shake daily. Okay, I should put a question mark. So I want to start that over again. Hello, I'm in the process of preparing and macerating some herbal glycerites. I tend to agitate or shake daily. What is your common sense advice to the use of rock tumblers, paint shakers, magnetic stirrers, and lab vibrators? Well, that's a whole lot of options for shaking stuff up, Candace. What do you think?
That is a lot of options for shaking stuff up. From a very, very practical, common sense, just get her done kind of position, I would say, set the jars of your glycerites out where you can pick them up. Pick them up, each one up, 1 or 2 good shakes, maybe 3 or 4. Shake, 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 set it down. Do the next one. Shake, 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 set it down. If you do that every single day it's usually 14 to 21 days, so 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to be doing probably even better than I've ever actually done. So
it's funny.
You're good.
When you were saying that, the first thing that came to my mind was that disco song.
Shake, shake, shake.
Shake, shake, shake.
Shake your
booty.
tincture.
Or in this case,
shake your
glycerin.
So the other, I have seen people, reference using a wide variety of different ways. I haven't heard about rock tumblers as a way to shake, but I could see how that, theoretically, you could get a lot of agitation.
But I don't think you necessarily need that much.
You really don't need that much. The key part for glycerites and for tinctures and really for vinegars is to give them enough agitation so that the molecules of liquid that are next to the molecules of solid are moved, so that new molecules that haven't been infused with the properties in the solids have an opportunity to soak that up. The reality is that if you are willing to let them sit for a longer time, maybe 3 months, you don't really have to shake much at all. And if you're not going to be a lazy herbalist like me and not let them sit for, you really want your stuff done in 2 to 3 weeks,
right,
then a little bit of shaking each day will help you out. I do have a lab stirrer, one of those magnetic stirrers.
Yes, it's very cute. I like watching it in the little bead spins around.
It's
the
fun.
Capsule.
It's fun. And the reason that I have it, in all honesty, is because I hate stirring lotions. They take forever. And I just hate doing that. It irritates me. So I can put it on my lab stirrer thing and it'll stir for half an hour for me. And I can do something else.
Oh,
but that's really the only place that I personally use my magnetic stirrer.
It's a brilliant invention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've watched you make, tinctures and these things for years, and I've never seen you agitate that often. I know, but I also know that you're going for more of a longer term. You'll put something in a jar and it may go for, a few months or more.
Yeah. I've been known to wait a year to strain tinctures.
I would like to see that. To have a paint shaker in your house is pretty intense.
Yeah,
that's a lot of painting.
That's some big tincture.
That's some big tincture.
And that is another thing we didn't qualify. I'm talking about doing tinctures that are like a half-gallon jar or smaller.
Right.
If you're doing something that's very large scale, 5 gallons, it's going to be really hard to shake that. So being able to put it into a paint shaker or some other larger apparatus for even just a minute or 2 each day would be helpful. But
keep in mind, when you are shaking fluid like that, a paint shaker, a rock tumbler, or anything like that, where you're not letting the air escape or any of the gases escape, it builds up pressure. It's a hydrostatic pressure, and it can blow out. And it's not something you want to do either. So that's a mess everywhere. Yeah,
if you're going to be using one that big, I suppose it would probably be wise to essentially burp it before and afterwards.
Right, you want to do that.
For doing my little quart jars on the counter or my half-gallon jars, I don't usually run into the problem of needing to let excess gas out.
Right.
But they're small.
So I like your advice. As you walk by and you see your half-gallons on the counter, just shake, shake, shake. Yeah. Shake, shake, shake your glycerin. Yep. Shake your glycerin. Move on to the next one. I think there you go. That's your rule.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much for a most excellent question, Veronica.
Thanks, Veronica. If you want to submit a question, there's basically a form, submit your question form, Herbal 101 question on every one of the podcasts. It's on the sidebar. You can, any of the old podcasts, any of the new ones. So if you have a question while you're listening to the podcast, you can just go ahead and fill it out right there. Very easy to do. And we don't answer all of them, of course, but we try to get to as many as we can. And if we like one that really kind of hits with a broader base, then we'll put it on the show. So, with that being said, it's time. So, hey, if you like the Real Herbalism Radio podcast and you want to review us on iTunes, it goes miles in helping us get more listeners, because the more people that are willing to put up a good review, it just magnifies us and shouts out, hey, these guys know what they're kind of doing and talking about.
Yep.
As always, we're on the socials again, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And what are the other ones? Who knows? There's so many. But feel free to reach out, and as always, become a Herbal Nerd Society member. That helps us in doing what we're doing here, supporting us. And I guess until next time,
Put an herb on it.
The statements made about herbs and products on this podcast have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided on this podcast or any affiliated websites is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information on this podcast and its affiliated websites for a diagnosis or treatment of any health problem. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamins, supplements, diet, or exercise program before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Any testimonials, questions, or case studies are based on individual results and do not constitute a guarantee that you will achieve the same results.